Hey everybody, it's Chris Kirkpatrick with Life 180, and I'm back here for our series on the perils or myths of your 401k with my buddy and friend and personal wealth coach, Caleb Williams with Better Wealth. So we're really excited to get in. So the first topic that we're talking about here with your 401k and the challenge or myths, or for this individual topic, the real challenge with it is that they're really market dependent, and ultimately you can lose a huge chunk of your net worth virtually overnight.
Right. I think what's funny is we live in a society where we think more risk equals more return.
For sure.
What's interesting, if you define risk, it's your chance of loss. So let's play this out. If we increase our chance of loss, that means you're going to make more money. No. So in everything that we do, and this is one of the big problems I think across the board, is in anything that you do, you have to understand what are my chances of losses. And it's a myth that to think if you take more risk, that's the only way that you can become wealthier. And so what we're going to go into, and I think you're going to draw on the board, is differences. Like, we need to understand the difference between average rate of return and actual rate of return. We have to understand the consequences of losing your money.
And I would say that, and probably get a little more into this than I was planning on, because it's just what we do. But as you do that, like, just understanding the cycle of markets as it goes with that, right, is so important. And not buying into like kind of the status quo with what people expect or what people are doing. That'll make sense as I go through this in a little bit. So let's talk about, like, to start, let's talk about the average versus actual rate of return. So I think this is really important, and it's amazing to me when I talk to people. Let's imagine you had $10,000 sitting in an account, right? So let's imagine that year one, let's just say year one, you have 100% return on that, right? So good for you. You had 100% return on that account. How much money do you have in your account?
$20,000.
You got $20,000, right? So that looks good. You got 100% rate of return, right?
Yep.
So now the next year, it's great to have that. You have the 20,000. You're buying holds because you're in for the long haul, right? You're not just you're buying and holding. So year two, I keep hitting this button. Year two, you have a negative, let's say negative 50% year, right?
Yep.
So I know that seems like a dramatic example, but I promise you, if you run these numbers at any percentages, the principles remain the same. That's the one thing I want to say here is, like, I'm not trying to say expect to lose 50%. It could happen. It's happened before.
I mean, the market's not going to go up 50% and most likely won't drop by 50% in 1 year.
We're using these ratios to keep things even, and I know they're dramatic. But the principles, if it's 20% and 10% or 10% and 20%, the principles are absolutely the exact same. They work out the same way. I promise you. Just run the numbers. So if you have 20,000, you lose 50,000. What do you have?
You have 10,000.
You're back down to 10,000, right? So you're at 10,000. Now, I'm a big believer. This is one thing that I talk to people about, is we can prepare for anything we expect.
Yes.
I think this is one of the biggest problems when it comes to the 401k, is that people have false expectations or misguided expectations for what they expect their 401k to do, right?
Yep.
Because if you're expecting 8% of a return, right, and you get 6 over your career, that may not seem like a lot, but then when you take fees out of it and all these other things, like, you go from thinking you're going to have $1 million in an account to having like 300,000 or 200,000, and obviously that's a massive difference. And literally that is the difference between 8 and 6.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's insane.
It's absolutely insane. And that's the power of compounding and uninterrupted earning, right? And not losing. So now let's get back to this. I divert a lot. So $10,000 is what you got. So Caleb, what was your rate of return on this money?
Well, so my actual rate of return or average rate of return?
Well, how much do you have? What did you earn?
My actual rate of return was 0. Goose egg.
So the real rate of return is 0, right?
Yeah.
So what is the average rate of return?
The average rate of return, well, first of all, how do you determine what an average is?
So the average rate of return is you have a plus 100 year, right? Minus a 50% year, so you got 50. And then you divide that by 2 years equals 25%.
Wow. So I would love to get a 25% rate of return on my money.
So this is the problem. This is the challenge that I have now. Once again, this is an extreme example. But when we showed that last screen, actually, well, it's not there. Never mind. When we showed that last screen of the actual rate of return on the intro to this series, of the actual rate of return was like 1.5% higher than the real rate of return, that's what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah.
So this is a really extreme example from a small time period, a 2-year time
Right.
frame, and big
Right.
numbers, but that's what it really looks like.
Right.
So we're talking about, this makes a huge difference. Understanding the difference of the real rate of return versus the average rate of return is massive. And here's my problem, is that it's legal for advisors to go out there.
Yeah, I mean, everyone totes averages. I mean, think about it. In our language, the market will average this.
Yeah.
We looked at over the last 20
Doesn't
years, the actual rate of return. We're not talking about fees. We're not talking about taxes. We're not talking about any of the other things that go and drags to your money. We're just talking about the actual rate of return is less than 5% the last 20 years.
4.5 something percent from 2000 to 2019. 4.5 something percent.
Now, what's interesting, and I don't know if you're like this, but I want to know why it's the case. Why, if you earn 100 and lose 50, why is it that extreme? And one of my mentors told me this, and it just stuck, is every time you lose $1, that dollar is never able to work for you ever again. And so whether it's your 401k, whether it's real estate, regardless of what it is, you don't want to lose money. Losing money is a really, really negative thing. And so anytime you lose money, know that that has a lifetime consequence.
Yep. So I think that's a big thing. Like that's why number one on this list is the fact that your account can be decimated overnight. Yes. Now, if you're like me and you're 40 years old and you're in the middle of your career, you can work back from that. But I would challenge you even then and say, why do it if you don't have to?
Exactly.
Like, why put yourself in that situation, right? On the other end of the spectrum, we have a lot of baby boomers right now, and even people that are, wanting to retire earlier in the mid-50s, like that are hitting that point in time where, when they hit 59 and a half, they're going to want to start tapping into these things. And if you're 59 right now, imagine you were 59 in 2008, right? Or you're 64 in 2008 and you were thinking about retirement, and then bang, 50% of your retirement. A lot of people lost 50 to 60% in 2008.
Yep.
That's insane, right? What are you doing? You're like, everything that you'd worked 40 years for, gone in a blip, right? And that's not just one isolated incident. If you retired in 2000 with 2001, if you retired in 1987, if you in the 1980, 1968, like this is not something that doesn't. It's happened 6 times in the last 52 years. So predictably, like it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when it's going to happen, right?
Yep.
And so what I just like to teach people is like, you want to protect yourself and insulate yourself about that. And that goes back to my comment at the beginning, is like, I never wanted to have a conversation with a client where I'd have to look at them and say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Same. Period. Like, I want to look you in the eyes and be able to tell you, like, if you follow a strategy, I'm not saying you're not going to take risk, but when you take risk in something take risk in something you understand, take risk in something you actually have a control on the outcome of the result.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. Shocker.
Shocker. I mean, like,
or if you're going to take a risk, understand like what other benefits that you could do.
Sure.
For instance, let's say you're going to go out for a business. You might not make it in business, but it might give you experiences, and you might have to do it just to prove it to yourself.
For sure.
Those are other benefits and learning. Like, what do you learn when you lose 50% in the market? Not to put your money in the market? I don't know.
Yeah.
But
they just keep putting it in.
So those are other things that are
It'll be different
important.
next time. That's what they tell them. It's like, just, you know what? Just ride it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's it. If this sounds, hopefully, first of all, hopefully this makes sense, and if you have questions about anything that you're doing, like what you're doing with your 401k, what you're doing for your planning, if you're concerned, I know there are so many people out there right now that are concerned because we've lived, right now we're living in I'm going to call it the biggest bubble since the Great Depression, and I feel very confident in saying that because it's the longest bull run that we've had in the market, meaning the market has been nothing but up for 11 years now, right? And so that said, usually the further you go up the hill, the bigger the cliff is on the other end, right? And that's just historic, history of the cycle of the markets. The bigger it goes up, the faster it comes down. And I'm not a doomsdayer at all. I think it will be good, but you got to know how to manage those swings. And that's one of my big challenges with the 401k, because guess what? If your money's in there, it's there.
Yeah.
It's stuck for the most part.
Yeah.
And you're not managing it actively and all these things. So if you want help, if you want a second pair of eyes, if you want a team of wealth coaches to help you look at it, or if you want education about other alternatives to just dumping your money blindly into a 401k, Caleb wrote a book. It's called The And Asset. I'm gonna keep hawking this thing because it's awesome. Thanks. And people need it, and I love it, and it's simple to understand, and I just think it's must read. I think every teenager should read this book before they get out into the world. But you know, I would say there's a link below. Go check that link out. That'll bring you to a place you can get a free copy of that book. You can go to Amazon, pay $20 for it, or you can go onto the link and get it for free. So, I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, but that's up to you. So go check that out. And there'll also be a link on there if you want to talk to somebody. There should be a link there. You can go talk to somebody on Caleb's team. Non-commission paid, they're not going to sell you anything. It's not what it's all about. They genuinely, that's why I work with Caleb. That's why I love this guy. He's like my brother. Because of the fact that, you know, he's just got this heart of service and wants to do it. And
Thank you, man. Thank you. I think the summary of this is risk is your chance of loss, and in everything that you do, try to minimize that, try to be aware of that.
100%.
And this was a lot of fun.
Awesome, man. Cool. So until next video, go crush it, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.